We're coming to you from the Mumbai Cloud and Data Center Convention, and joining me now is a very special guest, Mr. Surajit Chatterjee from CapitaLand. Welcome to W.Media,
Thank
sir.
you.
So how has 2024 treated CapitaLand, and what can we expect in 2025?
I think 2024 has been a very busy year for us. We are deploying 4 assets across 4 major metros with a total capacity of about 245 megawatts gross.
Wow.
Out of which the 2 assets are going to get live by end of this year, early next year, which are in the locations of Mumbai and Hyderabad, and followed by Chennai and Bangalore. So I think our strategy and our timing is very perfect. I think the way the market is moving towards larger capacity, towards specific corridors, towards high powered density capacities, I think we are poised to deliver that in terms of our design, in terms of our capability to execute those new technologies, and obviously in the process fulfilling the needs of our hyperscale as well as our enterprise class customers.
Your expertise now is also into BTS. Where do you see that going in 2025?
Thank you for touching that. I think it's a very passionate topic. I'm always very passionate about. I think we have built in a lot of capabilities on the BTS route, and we spent about a couple of years in building that capability within the organization. What it gives us now, that when we engage with our large set of clients across hyperscalers and enterprises, we are able to bring a lot of customized designs at a floor level. And that capability, we have built it in the last 2 years to understand the needs of those customers' designs. And right at the design inception stage, the customers are finding a lot of value add in that, because larger capacity customers are always looking for BTS solutions. And here, when we come with these kind of solutions, it makes a lot of meaningful discussions with them in terms of whether it is the rack density, whether it is the cooling mechanism, or at a server level, what kind of changes we can bring, not only on the floor but also at the network level. This is causing a lot of exciting discussions to happen, and we want to focus more and build the story ahead from here.
Give me a sneak peek into these discussions, because a lot of it, as you said, is driven by AI, by liquid cooling needs. So what kind of, how are you changing the way you think? How are you changing the way you design things? From the very inception stage, how does the thinking take place?
So typically when we first design our first layout, we don't design it typically at a floor level. We only keep it at an outer shell level. And then we go and start engaging with our potential clients and tell, this is what we have designed in mind. Now, players to players will have a different strategy. For us, what typically the parameters we choose to design are little forward looking and future proof. So when a client sees that our designs, for example, our floor loading or our heights or our modular design structure matches their expectations, they typically understand that their deployment can be a little faster than somebody else who still have a lesser specs. This brings an edge to our discussions. And then the customer feels that at this stage, if we are able to want a design change, then CapitaLand has the capability to adopt those changes, implement it, and deliver it on time.
Speaking of future-proof, is there any such thing as future-proof in an industry that is changing so quickly?
Most of the large customers have a footprint of at least 5 years, and they are building their capacities for that 5 years period. They want the service providers also to have a flexible approach on that. So not only about the space and the power, they also want that technology adoption by the service providers should be in such a way that as they scale, the service provider is also able to accommodate that. Well, it is not that easier as it is said. So the service provider at their level have to create a lot of those capabilities within the system in terms of understanding that technology, deploying that technology, and moving along with the customer. What happens in the process is, the customer is binded to you for 5 years, and it helps you to build that relationship and grow the capacity the way you want to grow.
Okay, now moving on. Earlier today, you moderated a panel on AI, and we are all excited about AI. But, and I'm not a technology expert, my assessment as an outsider, as just a journalist, is that everyone is excited, but no one really knows what to do with it. So what are we doing right and what are we doing wrong?
Well, we are doing, I would say, nothing doing wrong as of now. We have started to do right, but it's just an initial part of the journey. AI is such a vast technology gamut that we have just started on that journey now. I think what initially we are doing, and most of the industry peers are also doing that, we are trying to create our design on AI-enabled architecture. That means tomorrow when the chips or the CDUs enter the server racks, our network, our operations, and our design is able to support. This entire concept is so dynamic that by the time you deploy one set of rack of servers, by the next probably the rack of server changes. So I think at this stage, what we are doing in CapitaLand is we're keeping our infrastructure ready. While we also learn while we do that, because customer brings their own capacities, own technologies, and that we need to deploy.
Sure.
That's a joint sort of a learning. We have very, very close working partnership relationship with global OEMs like Schneiders and Vertivs, who bring a lot of these technologies as OEMs. We do a lot of joint workshops with them to understand what the deployment looks like, how it benefits to end customers, and in the process, how much we are getting ready to be on the journey of so-called AI.
After AI, the other big buzzword that has captured everyone's imagination is liquid cooling. How bullish are you on liquid cooling?
I think we've already started deploying. We are deploying it in one of our assets in Navi Mumbai. I think that will immensely help the entire ecosystem. It takes away less of space, it takes away less of power. You're able to have higher rack densities. So I think it's a technology for the future. I think today liquid cooling, well obviously there is a cost attached to it. So not very many customers are able to see it. But I think in the next 2 to 3 years, the penetration of liquid cooling in India would be definitely more than 40-45% across all data centers.
Wow. Moving from liquid cooling to the next step in the same direction when it comes to renewables and also deploying all these greener so-called energy sources. There is also one energy source which is a little controversial, not considered green and yet somehow clean, and that is nuclear technology. Do you see adoption of that happening in India anytime soon?
Not immediate. I'll tell you why. The renewable story is still coming into shape. Today, with data centers as power guzzlers, there is a definite need to be green. Government is also mandating slowly that at least X percentage of your capacity has to be green. Right now, we are in a fulfillment mode. First of all, we have to fulfill that through the renewables route. Then comes the sustainability. Sustainability is definitely for the long term. For CapitaLand, we also have our own sustainable targets from a group perspective. I think keeping that in mind, there are various sustainable models. That model could be in the design, that model could be in the manufacturing units what you are buying, that model could be in the liquid cooling technologies. Nuclear is something ready for the future, but I think my view too is that let's take one step at a time. Today, we still have to see a lot in the renewable and the sustainability area. States have their own laws pertaining to green stuff. So I think as the capacity is built, India touches that, crosses that 5 gigawatt, 7 gigawatt mark. Yes, there is the time then it steps in, the nuclear. But right now, the phase we are in, we right now have to fulfill the demand. To fulfill the demand, you need to have the renewable and sustainability in place, which all the providers right now are working. Next 2 to 3 years to 4 years, that's the window where we have a stable, renewable platforms. And renewable means, like for CapitaLand, we are also investing into renewable. We have recently invested into a 25 megawatt of power plant in Chennai, solar power plant in Chennai, right? So a lot of these players are looking at renewable from an investment perspective, which is long-term in nature, because CapitaLand's roadmap for till 2030 is very clearly laid down in terms of capacities. To cater the green or the renewable, you need to have an alternate source in terms of everything. So I think right now we're in that stage. Once we have crossed that stage, I think definitely by the time you're going to hear about nuclear thing also coming up.
So, but realistically, in 5 years, are we going to start thinking about it seriously at least?
No, we have to start thinking about honestly after 3 years. And then the steps take 7, because while you deploy something, you have to start looking at future. Liquid cooling, people started thinking almost about a year and a half back. But now we see that the deployment has started. Maybe it's a little slow, but it will pick up. So I think the way the industry is showing direction, every new technology takes about 2 years of formation and another 5 to 7 years of deployment.
Let's now move on to the investment climate. What is your assessment of the investment climate? Are we investing in the right things, and what are some things that are just falling through the cracks?
I think this is the best asset class to invest. The way India is moving towards their digital transformation. I think we are a 1.45 billion, if the number is correct now, and an average age is around 30s. You know, we are a very young population. Data is so much, and we are all hooked on content. I think this is the best. And I often keep telling my peer group that why we call it a data center, we should call it a digital infrastructure. We are actually the custodian of digital infrastructure. That's where the data is getting mined. That's where AI implementation will happen. I think it's a perfect landscape for investors who has that aspiration from a traditional asset class to a technology asset class. Having said that, these are long-term gestated product lines. It is typical investor mindset is to exit a 7-8 years. I think here the customer contracts are more than 12-15 years. So it's a long-term play. You need to adopt that mindset, you need to have that temperament. But once you are in, then it's definitely a very, very long drawn model in which you can reap your benefits.
Final question, sir. We are talking about building gigawatt scale data centers in India, and even the hyperscalers are nowhere near those numbers. So how do you see that dream unfolding, if it would? And how long do you think it's going to take for us?
I'm very bullish personally, and tell you why. Pre-COVID, our India capacity was about 350 megawatts. As we speak today, we are 900 megawatts. 2 years down the line, the projection is about 1600 megawatts. So I think the past phase which we are doing and the pace which now we have taken, I think we are growing at a CAGR of about 25-28%, right? The way things are moving, the way demand is being showing, and the way supply is getting built. I mean, I'm quite confident by the time we touch 28 plus, India will be in the space of 2 gigawatts. And there's another reason for that. The surrounding periphery of the continent, which is like your Singapore, they have moratoriums. There's challenge on power. India has abundant land and power, which are two critical infrastructure needs for a data center. What you need is a faster execution model on the ground. You need a robust system from a government machinery which allows your approvals to come on time. You have the technology, you have the talent pool, you have the skill set. We all collaborate together. I don't think the gigawatt is far off for us in terms of achievement.
That's a wonderful note to end this on. But before I go, I must ask you, you have been associated with W.Media and have been coming to our CDC events for a few years now. What is it that draws you to us, and what was your experience today like at Mumbai CDC?
And I always find CDC as one platform. In my earlier things also have said is that this is a depository of all ecosystem players coming together. We not only here meet and greet, we also discuss what's new coming up. I think there's one side of the vendor ecosystem which brings in new products and services. There is one side of government licensing which also understands and listens from us that what is the need of the industry, and then obviously the service provider community. I think it's a perfect platform where all collaborate, engage, and here the takeaways also helps us to go back to our desk and see that what we are missing or probably what right we are doing, and learning from other people's success story, helping to scale the entire things faster.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
We'll have many more other such interviews throughout the day, so stay tuned.